WION correspondent Lucy Ho is live with us from Brussels for more updates on the battle against coronavirus in Europe. Now, Lucy, welcome to WION. Thanks for speaking to us. Italy is facing a major crisis, isn't it? More than 2,000 deaths in Italy alone due to the coronavirus. It's an alarming figure, isn't it?
Yes, and it's jumped by 200 since the weekend. We already were surpassing the 1,800 mark during a terrible weekend for Italy. It recorded its record death toll, and that has just continued to increase despite those really drastic lockdown measures that are in place. A total countrywide quarantine now in place with people confined to their homes for all but essential travel, whether that's to pick up food supplies or visit the doctor or for any emergencies. But even walking the streets, people are reporting being stopped by the police, who are demanding to know why they are out of their homes. The Italian government obviously reduced to really drastic steps to contain the worst of the virus. I mean, that number now well in excess of 25,000 in terms of the total number of cases. It has become the epicenter of the virus in Europe, and we are seeing now Spain following not far behind, cases now nearing 10,000 there. Similarly in France, cases pushing towards 7,000 now. So, you know, other European countries not far behind, they have also now imposed more drastic lockdown measures in the last 48 hours or so to try and contain the worst of the outbreak, and they are hoping that over the coming days and weeks those figures will start to change.
Right, Lucy, at the same time we are seeing numbers finally fall in the hotbeds. First of all in China, that was the epicenter of the outbreak in South Korea. Is concerned. How confident are Italian authorities and medical authorities of other European nations like Spain and Germany, and by when do they expect to get a grip on this outbreak?
Well, everybody seems to be working by a timetable of 2 to 3 weeks, where certainly the restrictions here in Brussels are in place until April the 3rd. So there is a hope that with 2 to 3 weeks of quite drastic confinement measures, that the rate of new infections will start to reduce. But that is clearly easier to do in a country like China, where, you know, the Chinese government were able to carry out what was effectively state surveillance of citizens, where it was much easier for them to put in very, very drastic quarantine measures. In a country like Italy, you know, that is clearly a different situation. But we are confident now. What we're hearing from the Italian government is that, you know, citizens are following these restrictions. There are few cases being reported of people not abiding by these rules. And certainly in France, you know, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has deployed 100,000 police officers to the streets of France to enforce these new measures. And anyone caught on the street without good reason to be out there will be fined as much as €135. So, you know, I think governments have a lot of goodwill towards their citizens, that people want to get through this. They want these restrictions to be over as soon as possible, and that, broadly speaking, people will choose to abide by the measures. But really, you know, that is what it takes in order for those numbers to start changing. You know, as the rate of infection continues to increase in France, the number of new infections was trebling every few days. So it was just, you know, the cases going up all the time. So this is highly important that, you know, governments seem to be doing the right things by their citizens, that the measures that they're putting in place are proportionate. But we are seeing, of course, these very, very, you know, advanced confinement measures in countries like Italy, France and Spain at the moment.
Lucy, thanks so much for joining us on WION and getting us all the updates as far as Europe's battle against coronavirus is concerned. Drastic measures have been taken by countries like Italy, France and Spain, but all of them are necessary if Europe needs